governance. And she's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Also, she's a founder of Dorian Associates. She's a founder also and chair of Women on Boards Network. Also, she's a corporate governance trainer. She is, I should say, also Chief Judge Corporate Governance, that is the FIRE Awards, and ISPAC Fellow. And of course, she has a long list of achievements as well on a profile that I cannot enumerate all of them right now. But we're going to hear from Catherine this morning. Catherine, you have 5 minutes beginning now to tell us also your side on what good corporate governance is all about.
Thank you, Dibal, and good morning, viewers. I would just like to pick up from where Chairman Mushene left the conversation, and just to say that good corporate governance is premised on hearts and minds. So I apply certain principles of corporate governance, not because there is a law that requires me to apply those principles, but because I believe that it is the right thing to do. So ethical leadership is a key pillar of good corporate governance. And so the board is very important in driving this ethical culture, in ensuring that the organization is run in a manner that will deliver value to the organization. And that's why a key pillar of corporate governance is ethical leadership. And sometimes you go to organizations and you find that the organization has a code of corporate governance or a code of ethics, but the board does not subscribe to it. It is a bit like a parent telling the children, go to church on Sunday, but you will find me here. So the board also has to subscribe to that ethical culture, has to push that ethical culture, has to make sure that that ethical culture has permeated the whole organization. A second key pillar in corporate governance is the issue of sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability in corporate governance, we are talking about sustainability from a triple bottom line approach. That is people, planet, and profit. So how is this organization going to deliver value to the stakeholders in the future from a people perspective? Which people do we have to drive this organization forward into the future? How much do we have to make sure that this organization is going to be there in the future? What about the planet? How are we looking after the planet to make sure that it is actually a good corporate citizen? Another key pillar in corporate governance is accountability, risk management, and internal controls. A number of corporate failures have actually been as a result of lack of good internal controls. So the board is doing all it can, the management is doing all they can to generate revenue, but that revenue is leaking because we don't have good internal controls. So the board must focus on accountability, must be accountable to stakeholders, must ensure that there are effective internal controls in place. Another key pillar in good corporate governance is diversity. Diversity looked at from the whole perspective of diversity, i.e. having different people on the board who bring different perspectives to the board. And here I'm not just talking about gender diversity, but diversity from the whole, in the broadest sense of the word. So do we have experience on the board? Do we have inexperience on the board? Do we have innovative people who are risk averse as well? Do we have women on the board? Do we have men on the board? Because all these different groups of people bring totally different perspectives and deliver effective decision making. Another key pillar in good corporate governance is, of course, transparency and disclosure. So it is all good to do all the good things in good corporate governance. But at the end of the day, stakeholders are starting to demand for greater accountability, greater transparency, greater disclosure from boards of directors. And when you look at the codes of corporate governance that we have whole chapters on transparency and disclosure requiring, and the latest in the Companies Act 2015 is that we're now going to know how much I earn from my board role at a certain organization. So disclosing my remuneration and how is that remuneration then linked to the performance of the organization. The whole discussion around integrated reporting. Stakeholders do value balanced reporting. So integrated reporting is about ensuring that in your annual report, you are actually not just covering the financials, but also giving the background information against which those financial results have been delivered. So what is your approach to risk management? What is your approach to how do you deal with your stakeholders? How do you engage in CSR, so on and so forth? Another key pillar in corporate governance is succession planning. And Chairman Mushene talked about succession planning from a management perspective. I want to say that good corporate governance also requires the board to ensure that they have a succession plan in place for themselves, i.e., when I leave this board position, who is there to take over from me? What skills are required on this board to make sure that this organization is sustainable in the future? This calls on boards to ensure that they have developed a skills matrix that is aligned to their strategy, and therefore it is very easy for them to then develop a succession plan out of for the board. The other important development in the area of corporate governance is the whole issue of term limits. In Kenya, we are talking about term limits for board members. It's not a very common discussion elsewhere in the world, because sometimes when people get to the helm of an organization, they want to be there forever. But from a corporate governance perspective, it is always good to get experience from one organization and then transfer that experience to another organization and allow new and innovative ideas to come on board in the organization that you're leaving. So the whole issue of term limits, how long should I stay in this organization? And the CMA code has set limits on that. Mwongozo has also set limits on that. Now, I also want to talk about continuous development of board members. Very often we get to boards and we assume that we need to develop our employees, but we actually forget that we ourselves need development because the world is changing. So a key pillar in corporate governance is ensuring that as board members, we are continuously developing ourselves, that we are continuously learning from new trends and implementing those trends within the organization that we find ourselves in. Lastly, I want to just say that good corporate governance is actually from deep down. We implement good corporate governance rules because we believe they're the right things that we need to implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.